All right, and we are live with week 2 of Be Your Own Business. I'm your host, Dr. Business. I need to get way better lighting in here, but that's something for a business with a budget. And we are still very early, even though we're in year 4, year 5. God, my hair is sticking out like crazy. Classic. This is what doing live takes is like. Be Your Own Business 102. We didn't have our name right last week. We do now. I came up with this 4 years ago. Somehow I forgot it. But, whatever. First drafts. So today we're talking about channel brand alignment. Why are we talking about channel brand alignment? Well, because once you've decided what your business is going to be about, what you're selling and who you're selling to, we need to start communicating with them, validating that our assumptions about what we're selling are true. But also, it starts to develop sales and marketing channels for people to become aware of our product or service and our business and eventually become customers so that we can make money. Because the whole point of this is to be your own business. Because that's the best way to make money and to honestly live your life. Working for someone else, pretty much working for someone else when you don't own your own time, it can be hard to set boundaries. And being your own business allows you to choose your own boundaries for what you will and you won't do, how you will and you won't work. And as long as you communicate those things appropriately, it can be very accommodating. And so knowing how you work best is really, really rewarding when you are your own business. Because it enables you to work how you work best. And I think that's something that's often lacking in places like corporate America. But off my soapbox, we're here to talk about channel brand alignment, or essentially just choosing your channels. And so we'll kind of go through the must-haves, talk a little bit about what is a channel in more detail. But then we'll kind of talk about the questions you need to go through to ask yourself in order to correctly choose your channels. And there are no correct options, but everyone should be aware you do not need to be on every other social media channel out there exists. You do not need to be on the most popular thing, but you do need to be strategic about the channels you're on. You do need to think through why you're on them in the first place, and then you need to commit to them, because that's how you build an audience, that's how you build your reputation, and that is how you drive business today in the digital age. You can use paid ads to augment many of those things, but like everything, advertising works better when people already know who you are. Funny how those things go. Anyways, to our must-haves. Before we go into the must-haves, let's talk about channels. There are paid channels, there are owned channels, and there are earned channels. The idea of an earned channel is, God, I'm so antsy today. The idea of an earned channel is earned media. Ultimately, when someone else decides to talk about you, broadcast, and publish you, could be your competitors. Even being listed on someone's competitor page is earned media, because it gives you brand recognition and value, and people recognize you as a valid competitor in the space, which is amazing. But it's confusing, because it's like your reputation is in someone else's hand. But ultimately, you don't have to pay for that exposure. Now, some earned media, earned being in quotation, is paid for. There's a lot of PR teams that can plant news articles and plant stories, ultimately because journalists and TV hosts are looking for people that fit topics that are trending at certain points in time. That's how I was able to get on television and a few local networks like San Francisco and Oklahoma and New Orleans to talk about NFTs during the height of the last crisis. My PR team was able to pitch me as an expert to those local audiences to then come in and provide additional information about it. And so ultimately, that is the realm of earned media. And like everything, it is also pay to play. So be aware of that. Now, moving up to our other channels, there's owned, and then there's paid, and then there's social. And so social and paid have a delicate interplay, because while all social channels have paid distribution on them, not all paid channels are social channels. And I think that's probably the clearest way to say that, obviously, because we just showed how PR could become a paid channel. And so basically, you might be familiar with Facebook or Instagram, TikTok. Those are all social media platforms. And it's free to use them, free to post, free to have a business profile. It's not free to be verified. It's not free to have visibility, like real visibility on the platform. It's often paid for by boosting. Now, you can grow an organic audience on these platforms, and if you pump out a lot of content and it has a fair amount of momentum, these platforms have incentive to give you visibility because they want eyeballs on their platform so that they can sell ads, which gets us to the paid portion of the channel, which is if you promote your own content on there and drive people to the content on those social channels, you can grow your social audiences using paid strategies. Then once your audience is sufficiently large enough, you can actually take that audience and use it to then drive revenue off or still on the social channels because some of them offer e-commerce functionality. Lastly, there's paid channels. Paid channels are, buy on Facebook ads, but it's also buy on Google, buy Google search ads, buy Microsoft Bing ads. But it can also be by the Trade Desk, by, billboard ads digitally. There's so many other forms of digital these days that is all important because you're paying to boost. The analytics allow you to track how many people you're getting in front of or an estimate. And then they're often giving conversion follow-up to say, yes, this is working, driving revenue. So ultimately, you have to be aware of all the channels that are available to you to market and sell your product. But as a business just getting started, the core focus is going to be around your own channels. And what is an own channel? An own channel is either your website or app, a platform where you own the database, where all the user interactions are happening, so that you can do whatever you want with that data to interpret it and use it to help you grow your platform, your business. But the other way to do it, and the way that most people would think about doing it, is a CRM system, which is basically a contact list, a Rolodex, a directory of all the people that you know and the relationship that they have to your business. Now, when you're just getting started and you're trying to get going, oftentimes what is best to do is start putting out a weekly or a monthly newsletter, something where you can showcase your expertise and demonstrate to people the value you have to provide to them as a service by telling them how you would go about doing that, educating them on the process. And I know that this is counterintuitive because why would you tell people how to do what it is that you do? Wouldn't that just discourage them and from hiring you to do it on their own? No, most people don't have the capacity or the time or the will to go do those things. They'd rather pay for it. It's possible, but ultimately you're going to establish yourself as a thought leader, even in the minds of the people who did it for themselves. And when they get to the point where they want to stop doing it, they're going to remember who taught them and come back and utilize your product, your service, whatever they have. And now that may not work every time, but that's the beauty of marketing. You're trying to build this legacy, this brand awareness, this air of expertise so that when people need the service and help that you provide or the product that you provide, they think of you first as the person who has the solution. So you need to start getting your brand awareness built, and it comes down to building this owned list. Owned because you have direct lines of communications with these people in an organized capacity. You have their email and or their phone number and the permission to communicate with them. This is huge. That's why you own the relationship, you own the channel. Email is a great channel to own. It's one of the easier ones to get started with. There's so many tools out there. SMS is a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit more clunky. The audience experience isn't necessarily there for it yet. People prefer privacy more, but that is also a potential route that I think will continue to grow more popular. The second owned channel you need to have is a website or a landing page, because of exactly what I said before about owning your data and that place to observe all your customers in a portal setting. Even with the email or the SMS tool, you're often using someone else's tool And so technically they own that data, even though you do own the data you're producing in it to an extent, especially when you export it. Ultimately, that is you taking custody of that data. And if you move it into a data warehouse, which could sit on the back end of your website, then you can use it to be more effective at directing customer traffic to the right pieces of information that's going to help them become a customer of yours or a stickier member of your audience, depending on what your goal is. Which is why I say you need analytics built in on those systems, which you can very easily go get a one-page website from someone like Wix or Squarespace and add Google Analytics and meet all the rules and of what you need right off the bat. You should know that Wix and those providers do own your data because they are providing the server that your data is being hosted on. So again, you would need to export that information to truly take ownership over that channel. And ultimately there's things you can do, but most people want you to feel comfortable that your business does own their data. And so a lot of these technology systems do have it in their best practices to support that. Now, lastly, I think you need 2, maybe 3 social accounts. And social account can be a loose term because some of these profiles are less social oriented than others. But depending on your business type, these are the things that you should be considering, right? And so this ultimately comes down to, we've already discussed the 2 channels you need to have. Now there's 2 to 3 additional channels you should be looking to maintain, and they're all social channels. Notice how we haven't discussed any amount of paid media at this point. Most businesses at this stage don't have the capacity to invest in paid media, nor really should they. If they do, they should be going about developing their own audience and not trying to drive revenue, because it is often way too early for that for the business. And you need to collect an asset that's going to be valuable to you long term, and that's going to be this contact information. So 2 to 3 social accounts. There are a handful of different business types out there. You could be, obviously people are familiar with B2B SaaS. There's also B2B services, which is similar to selling SaaS, but SaaS has to be sexier. It's all online driven, whereas services are more professional. They're more relationships, more network oriented. It could also be B2B products. And this could be something in the healthcare space to something in the manufacturing space. Something that has a unit cost of less than a cent to something that has a unit cost of tens of thousands of dollars. So you can see the spectrum here for those types of sales processes looks probably pretty different, but usually they have long-standing, sales contracts, long-term sales cycles. They often don't need as much promotional support to keep their businesses going. It's often network based, but data warehouses still often provide value to them in the form of logistical operations improvement, which means they can drive their unit costs down. And so while they might have not as many channel needs, they still have the need for the data warehouse. They still do communicate with their customers, and customer retention is incredibly important. So those own channels become far more important than the social channels to the growth and the longevity of their business, as opposed to the B2B SaaS company where, the sales cycle might be relatively short depending on the price point of the SaaS tool. When we talk about consumers, B2C space, there's obviously B2C services, and those could be digital or product. And then there's B2C products, and those could be digital or physical yet again. And so, when I think of a mom and pop restaurant, I'm going to say one of the social profiles you need to have is a Google My Business profile. And you should probably have an Instagram profile, and you should probably have, a Facebook page, but I would probably go for more of a TikTok page. Okay. And in both cases, you're focusing on local discovery. Every post emphasizes your neighborhood, your city, your larger surrounding suburbs, and what you offer as your product or service. Because especially young people are using the search functionality over in Instagram, over in YouTube Shorts, over in TikTok to discover visually where to go, because a lot of influencers post their reviews online in video format, vertical, short form. And so you need to be aware that that's where those types of customers are getting their information from. right? And so this is kind of the answering the question right down here for how do you choose your channel? Where do my customers hang out? If we go back to our B2B example, most of those customers are going to be hanging out over on LinkedIn. They might be on Reddit forums and niche cases. They might be on other internet forums, but ultimately they're probably going to be on LinkedIn. Whereas our customers, our small businesses, are going to hang out everywhere. So it's important to be strategic about where we put our billboards. Google search is oftentimes the place people are going to find food recommendations. You could say that some people are going to LLM tools now, and search engine optimization is still going to be incredibly important to the LLM discovery process. Although the better you can articulate information naturally and directly, specifically, I know that's, is the more likely that the LLM will pull you into its answer and reference you, and you'll get site traffic. But I wouldn't rely on that because that whole route is going very exploitative in terms of customer discovery. I would continue to focus on SEO and capturing that audience, especially with the local business strategy. But pairing it with social channels where you can show the visual deliciousness or experience of your product, good, service environment. And that essentially goes for anyone who's offering an app to consumers or some other product or widget. You probably need some sort of strong visual, but one of the ways to go when you're in this ambiguous consumer space is to fall back onto your voice, right? And so by asking yourself, where do I already post? You can lean into existing channels you've already established yourself on. And where you post might be different than where you have the most followers. So you should consider both the visibility and enjoyment of your posts in determining this. Because again, in the consumer space, because there are so many avenues to discovery that ultimately end in that search process, your awareness channels can be the ones that best support you to naturally share information. And that's kind of the best recommendation, especially as a smaller business just getting started. If you are a stronger writer, then you might want to be on Twitter. If you are just like free flowing with your thoughts, also in a writing capacity, that might be Facebook or Blue Sky, or some of these other blogging to micro blogging platforms. If you like to capture stills with comments, that seems more like an Instagram thing, right? But obviously everything's trending more towards video now. So if you can produce video content in short format, you're looking at Instagram, you're looking at TikTok, you're looking at YouTube. If you prefer long format videos, it's likely YouTube. It might be Rumble. It could be Vimeo. It could be some of the emerging Web3 platforms. But the point is knowing how you convey information best to whom and what feels most natural to you to share the information is where you need to start leaning into in determining those social channels. And when you come back to the B2B businesses, it's the same thing. You need to lean into your authentic voice on LinkedIn. And if there is another social channel that you're leveraging, Reddit or Twitter or what have you, it could even be Pinterest. So many people in the design space leverage Pinterest to curate, moods, visions. That's not my whatever, but that whole curation process, they draw inspiration when they're getting their own designs and creating. And other people look at their boards for inspiration as well. And so my point is, if you're already doing this work, you should leverage the existing channels you have, because your personal brand is ultimately what's going to platform your business brand. There's no escaping it in this day and age. And so that's why I say you have to be your own business, and the channels you're choosing are to distribute yourself first and your business second. You can distribute your business first over here on the website and on the social, or the website and the email list, but your social accounts, to start with your personal socials, they evolve to the business accounts. Just think about interactions on social media today. How often do you interact with the corporate brand version of the account rather than the thought leader from within the organization that it represents? I think that the Wendy's Twitter account aside, it's more often than not, you're interacting with the individuals and the peoples behind the business and not the corporate brand, because that's what we're looking for. And that's why this whole authenticity movement is relevant to helping start your business. So Anyways, stay tuned for next week where we're going to dive deeper into how to quickly get a website stood up so that you can start to build your social presence and start building this audience and take ownership over it. So thank you. This has been another episode of BYOB, Be Your Own Business. Like, subscribe, follow for more.